Right, the inner child. Okay, strange concept. It's more a Buddhistic type of concept, or a Buddhistic type of idea, but there's a lot of truth into the fact that there's an inner child. So each one of us has a child, inner child in us, and due to certain things that happen in our lives, we have silenced our little inner child. So the little me is now very quiet because of certain aspects, trauma, whatever. Also the way we grow up, especially in the Western world, we grow up with it like, oh, at some stage you need to be a big person now, and you do big person stuff. So when you're small, we draw pictures, we color in, and then when you get to a certain age, it's like we don't do that anymore, because that's children do that. And sort of you become an adult, but you don't. That's why a lot of adults lose their creativity when they grow up. Lots of adults are very creative, or kids are very creative, and then suddenly when we grow up, we're not creative anymore, because that's not how we are raised. So the idea of finding your inner child is actually going back to finding the stuff in your life that's fun. Because we go through a time when life is no longer fun. Because I'm now an adult. Our fun, what's your fun per day? I mean, if you look at your life, what's the most exciting thing you do every day? I mean, we at this stage in our life when our childhood punishments became our rewards. I mean, for me as a child to go to bed at 8 was a real big punishment. Now it's like I can't wait for 8 o'clock to go to bed. It's like that is like a great achievement for me if I can go to bed at 8. Like, but as a child, it's like I don't want to go to bed at 8. I don't want to do these things. I don't want to. But some days I sit at home and I feel like I just want to grab crayons and want to draw. I just want to draw, and it's like, oh, you're silly, you can't draw. But the fact is, who's judging my drawing? Me? It's me. I'm judging my own drawing because I am suddenly my own worst critic. So the thing about the inner child is actually the fun part, the part of our lives that's enjoying life, the creative side of us, and we killed it. Or not really killed it, but we actually suppressed it. For many people, the inner child actually is suppressed by things that happen in the body. I'm talking about the normal person who then went through a lot of childhood trauma. We destroy, or we suppress our inner child with, I'm now an adult and I don't do this. I'm now an adult, I don't climb trees. I would love to. Sometimes I get the craving of climbing a tree. I sometimes really like getting. I live next to a river. I've got heaps of trees. I take sometimes walks there, and sometimes I feel like, why can't I just climb a tree? And my first reaction is, what would the other people think when they walk past? There's a crazy man sitting in a tree. But it's obviously my inner child that wants to climb a tree. But when I worked with kids, I could still do that because my excuse was, I am now counseling this kid and we're climbing in a tree and we're sitting in a tree. But now suddenly there's no child, so now I can't do that. Like if I want to watch let's say I want to watch a Disney movie, I need to find a child to go with me so that I can have an excuse to watch the movie.
Yeah, otherwise I think you're
weirdo watching Cars 3 on his own. I was like, yeah, weirdo.
But you're not supposed to worry about what other people think of you.
We're not supposed to worry what we do.
Yeah,
because society has actually caused us to actually numb our inner child. I mean, if you want to do something weird, it's like,
I'll do it.
You will, but not us. Some people will, and I admire people who will do that. I had a grandmother who was awesome. My grandmother would do stuff, and my grandmother would take me to the movies, and my grandmother would. I had a great granny, I know a lady. She passed away, but she was my first when I started a church in South Africa. She was my first church member, and she was 80, but she was more naughty than the teenagers. You know, she was like,
Yeah.
and then I get these teenagers who was like 18 years old, who's like, really, you're worse than 80. I mean, you're like as dead as an 80-year-old. And then I've got this 80-year-old who I have to. I mean, after that lady's husband, or after that lady passed away, I actually had to speak to her husband, who was he was also 80. I had to speak to him and say to him, calm down on the girls a bit. I mean, you're seeing a new girl every week. Just relax a bit. It's like, I mean, it's like, well, other people is like, I'm not going to die. So the idea of the inner child is getting back the fun in our life. Unfortunately, also life things happen, especially with smaller kids who go through things like child abuse, sexual abuse, and that inner child dies already at the age of 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
Okay, and sometimes in counselling, it's a good thing to actually sort of go back, especially a person that went through abuse, is to go back and say, let's say that the lady you're talking to is Mary. Can you tell me, what would 8-year-old Mary tell you now? So sometimes we get in counseling, we actually try and connect our client with the inner child. We get to connect our client with who they were when something happened. Like, let's say a child lost his or her parents, at age 6. Can you tell me what 6-year-old Simon would tell you now? Or what would 6-year-old Simon experience now while we're talking? So it's sort of it's a bit like a gestalt type of thing, but we're trying to get contact
With that part that they've been able to.
a part that they haven't. So they haven't, when the parents died when they were 6, they never discussed that. They grew up with it, but it can be a very emotional thing for the client if you start going to the client and you start saying, okay, I want us to discuss it now. But it's like a moment. I did a video. When did I do the video? 2 days ago. 2 days ago I did a counselling session with Dylan. It's on YouTube.
I didn't see it on there.
It's on there.
Okay.
Okay, it's under case study. I just put it on case study. But we had a moment, there's a specific moment where I made him make contact with a situation that he brought up for the first time in counselling ever. And I dealt with that situation by saying to him, I want you now to sit with that situation. We didn't talk. We just sat there in silence. And then I said, what do you feel now about this situation? We didn't talk, I didn't ask him questions, nothing, we just sat there for a moment. And that's something we also do with the inner child, is something like, I want you now to think about 8-year-old George. Just sit there for a moment. We don't always have to talk. We don't have to fill the whole hour with speaking. You can in your moment say, I want you to connect with you. And I don't like to do that in the sense of I want you to connect with you when you were 8. Okay? We do a bit of like narrative, we externalize. So it's like I want you to connect with 8-year-old George. Sometimes I can even explain to you what would 8-year-old George look like now. And then I want you to connect with 8-year-old George. I want you to explain, and what would 8-year-old George tell you now about what happened to them when they were 8? You always try not to let 8-year-old George be 20 or 25 now, because that's totally useless, because George is now 25. Okay? So the issue happened when George was 8. I want you to tell me how 8-year-old George is feeling today. Something else happens. You can also go and you can say like, I want you now to go home and I want you to actually have a conversation with 8-year-old George, and I want you to write it down. So they can actually write down a letter as if they are 8-year-old George. So it's connecting them with the inner child. So each one of us has an inner child. Some people's inner childs are more active than other people's. My inner child is very, very deep buried because that's the way I grew up. I was the only child with fairly older parents. My dad was 45 when I was born, so I was the only child, 45-year-old. I was always surrounded by adults, so I'd never really had the exposure of siblings or younger kids around me. So my inner child was sort of an adult from day one, and that's why sometimes I get this craving to climb a tree. Although I did climb we had an awesome tree in our yard, but I actually had an awesome childhood because my dad retired when he was 55. So cool. My dad only worked 5 years and then he was retired. But my dad started a business and he rented out caravans. So we had 8 caravans in our yard. So it was quite fun to play amongst the caravans. Being the only child, you got everything you wanted. He bought me a bike. I had a motorbike when I was 9, and I had to drive my motorbike in between all these caravans. What a lovely childhood, but it was also adult stuff I did. I was driving a motorbike when I was 9. I was driving a bike. But the inner child's still there, and sometimes I feel like being creative. Sometimes I feel like watching a cartoon. Or drawing a picture or stuff like that, and that's one thing that in the course I did with CHC, we actually had to draw a lot of pictures sometimes. They try to develop the inner child. So that's why I want to talk to you today about the inner child, because each one of us has an inner child, but each one of our clients have inner children, and those inner children sometimes suffered. And sometimes the easiest to get them to talk about the drama or the whatever they went through when they were a specific age is to actually going back to inner child. Okay, so it's quite an interesting topic.
What at that age you're talking about, though, is where the trauma started.
Yeah.
So going back to that, how does it react then?
Basically what happened is in the normal counselling session they will say to you, they'll come and they'll talk to you stuff and stuff. You're not going to go to inner child like day one, but they'll come to you and say stuff like, as Carl Rogers says, the problem they come to you is not the problem. So they come and say, I've got a problem with this, and then as we delve deeper and deeper and deeper, we come, okay, fine. Your relationship issue is maybe something that happened when you were 5. Alright, and then if you feel it's necessary to actually go towards 5 and towards the 5-year-old inner child, we can do that. My son lost his dad. Both our kids are adopted. He lost his dad when he was 5. And one day I actually sat with him and I say, can you tell me what 5-year-old Josh is feeling now? So, but it's not like day one. It's like we were not sitting watching TV and saying, hey, what is 5-year-old Josh feeling now? It's like we were actually in a moment and we were talking about specific stuff in his room, and it was about an hour and a half talk, and then I started saying to him, can you tell me what 5-year-old Josh is feeling now, if he was in the room?
Is this your oldest?
My oldest, yeah. So that's how we went back to that time. It's a bit sometimes, it's sometimes easier than saying, can you tell me what happened when you were 5 years old?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's so long ago. But when you start saying, I want you to actually connect with the 5-year-old you.
It could be more traumatic too, the other way too.
Yeah. But you get, it's as if you get, as if sometimes they take the persona, not the persona like change of, but sometimes it's as if it's becoming clearer to them when they actually turn their whole mind into, I'm 5 years old now, and this is actually what I'm experiencing. So, definition of the inner child is the childlike, usually hidden part of a person's personality that is categorized by playfulness, spontaneity, creativity, usually accompanied by anger, hurt, fear attributable to childhood experiences. So it is the hidden part that is also full of playfulness, spontaneous, and creative. Playful, spontaneous, creative. Playful, spontaneous, creative. 1.
Oh, thank you.
Hey?
I was getting my mind.
No, it's alright.
It's okay, we're recording.
So can I have
Yes, there you go. So playful, spontaneous, creative, okay? So, and then the other part it says is anger, hurt, and fear. So when this happens, we turn into anger, hurt, and fear when stuff happens. And that's why we need to connect our client with that part so we can address the anger, the hurt, and the fear. So that's why we're talking about getting in connection or connecting with the child. Because what happened to make you not being a child anymore? And what making you not being a child anymore is what took away your playfulness, spontaneity, and creativity. Something happened. Sometimes it's just the life we live, but right. Who is your inner child? Each of us has a child residing deep inside of us, one that is a direct descendant of the child we once were. This inner child is with us at all times and show up here and there behind certain desires and actions without us really being conscious of their presence. Sometimes the inner child comes out. My inner child comes out when I'm at Movie World. Because then I'm at all the rides and take photos of all the characters. I mean, if I see Batman, I take a photo of Batman. And my kids take the photos. I mean, I'm the one standing next to Batman and my son is standing there with the camera. Where other people is, the dad stands with the camera and the kid is next to Batman. Or next to Tweety or next to whatever. That's where I become a child. So there are sometimes the inner child does come out. But then we just push him back again. So the idea is we need to be more childlike. Not childish,
No.
but childlike in some ways. Okay, so remember this, that the inner child is with us and it wants to come out. So what would your inner child, just for curious sake, what brings your inner child out? Or is it hidden so deep?
I think mine's getting way
I think the way I am now
Yeah.
is what I would have liked to be as a child.
Okay. Yeah.
Out there, which I couldn't be.
Mm.
I was
Okay.
tormented and always.
Yeah, so you're like now living what you want it to be. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. I have a cousin who is like a real child these days. Now that he's got money, but he grew up not in a very good home and stuff like that. Now you go to his house is full of toys. And it's like his wife says that he's now being a child, which he never could have been. Because now he can afford radio remote control stuff and whatever. And so some people actually can live their childhood, but I'm not talking about living it out, I'm talking about bringing your inner child out again, being the creative one out, being the happy one out.
I suppose mine would be music. Dance around the house like music.
Sometimes just being silly. And remember, one of the things that parents need to do to have a good relationship with their kids is sometimes be silly.
Oh,
yeah,
my
I
God,
do
Mum,
that.
grow up when you're doing that.
Yeah,
You
sometimes
used
do
to be
being
around the
being
house.
and embarrass them from time to time, but in the house.
Yeah.
I wake my son up with a song. He hates it. He absolutely hates it. I mean, it's like normally, oh, what a beautiful morning from.
I sing You Are My Sunshine to my two
Yeah.
youngest, and
Mhm.
they hate it.
Yeah, this morning I woke my son up with "Wake Me Up Before You Go Go."
What are you singing?
Right?
You singing?
Yeah, you're singing, I'm singing, but he hates it. But then he just, it's like, but that's stuff they remember.
Yeah.
That's right.
They absolutely hate it, and Dad, please don't do that in public, but they hate it.
And that's what they will remember
That's what they-
when they grow up
Yeah,
and
yeah.
each of their own.
And they will do that for the kids one day.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are making memories, but we're also bringing a bit of the inner child out. The other day, my wife locked she came, she locked the door, went to the car and realized she forgot something inside, and then she said to my son, we need to get in, we knock on the door. She said, no, we won't get Dad to open the door because he's in his room singing. Because I put on a CD in the mornings, so it's like, luckily the other one heard it, but sometimes we need to release some inner child, right. How to embrace your child, meet your inner child is reconnect with your childhood. One way to rekindle the relationship with your inner child is time travel back to your childhood. To do this, make a list of things that brought you joy when you were young. Explore these lovely memories and try and recall the childhood wonder. Revisiting these activities, also a good idea. Some ideas, sports, whatever, soccer, football, basketball, exploring the woods, taking a walk, playing pretend. This can be dressing up with your kids, like if you've got little kids having tea parties, that sort of stuff. Color whatever in a adult coloring book. And for some reason we are doing lots of coloring these days because coloring is now in as a therapy, which is totally annoying. I don't really, that's not my sort of therapy. So that wasn't one of my childhood loves of my life is to color in. I absolutely hated to color in. So indulge in your favorite childhood treat, so cereal or stuff like that. Sometimes I love watching kid shows I watched on YouTube when I was a child, because luckily they're on YouTube now. So we can watch some of these stuff and good old memories coming back.
I just think, God, I'm old.
Well, my grandkids are the same.
Yeah. Okay, so we identify your specific inner child. Everyone has different childhoods. There are patterns common to most people. Alright, the playful child. The child is a healthy, often neglected aspect of adulthood. The playful child wants to have spontaneous fun and live free from guilt and anxiety. So we want to be that child that lives free from guilt and anxiety. But we are so filled with guilt and anxiety that we just smash the little child back into the corner.
And it's also what society perceives as
Or expects.
or expects, yeah.
It expects that. The fearful child has probably received a lot of criticism as a child and experiences anxiety whenever fails. So didn't get enough information. So with that one is you actually work with this child. If you've got a client that you realize they've got a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, you actually can go back to the inner child and actually say, hey, what happened? Tell me when you were a child. Tell me how was little George in year 1, year 2, year 3. You can actually go through the years as he grew up and you can deal with that anxiety that they go through. What caused you to have this anxiety? So it's a bit of a different approach to what we normally do because we're focusing on you as a child. But meanwhile, we all have this child inside of us who actually wants to have fun.
But that'd be a good way because it makes them click quicker than trying to get them to talk
Yeah.
and then work it out. It's sort of like more like a switch being switched
Yeah,
on.
it's a bit.
I hadn't thought about it,
Yeah. That's a bit of narrative because it's externalizing basically. Because I don't want you to tell me what you experienced when you were you knew 8 years old. I want to know what little George experienced when he was 8 years old. So it's a bit of narrative we do there while working with the inner child. Write a letter to your inner child. Okay, this can be an apology if you feel like you've neglected your inner child.
I don't think I could do that.
Write a letter and say, Dear George, I'm sorry that I neglected you. The last time I actually allowed you to be a happy little child is when you were 10 years old. So it's like, yeah. I mean, sometimes there's kid stuff we like to do, play with clay. It's like, just, it's like something fun. Do something fun.
Could it even be something that would add on that as an adult, say, as you were just talking, Mum was farmer, being able to run around and pick up dry cow pat and throw it at each other, things like that when you're a kid.
Yeah.
But I haven't horse riding over 15 years and I've been riding since I was 2.
Yeah.
So even though it's an adult thing, it can still be a memory as a child.
Yeah, because it's a child thing. You did it as a child, and it was sort of part of your life as a child. So trying to rekindle those sort of things, the things that make you happy. It's more like getting connection with the stuff that make you happy when you were a child, and thinking a bit not so adult. Because we think so adult that we all look around full. That's why we're all so full of anxiety and stress and everything, because we just never give us the chance to actually just relax and do something silly. I mean, what's the silliest thing you've done in the last few weeks? Probably nothing.
I've gotten down and played with the kids on all fours like a baby. Kids and I.
Okay.
That was mine. And we did that a few nights ago as a stress release.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know.
Right. At least one person did something silly.
I probably do something silly every day.
Probably.
I do too, but
Probably.
that's
Yeah.
normal. I think you said that's not normal.
So yeah, cultivate an open space. Your inner child is a vulnerable person. She may need a safe space before she shows herself.
What does that mean?
Maybe alone in your room,
Yeah.
putting up loud music and dance as if nobody's watching. It's like, do something silly. Go in the bush, climb the tree where no one can see you. That sort of stuff. A safe space. It's like, I'm not going to sit in front of my kids and start to dance like nobody's watching, because they'll be like, Dad, you're silly. And then they'll say that and I'll like, okay, fine, I'm not going to do this again. But
I just ignore them.
Yeah, I'd ignore them and just get in there and
I love my music and dancing too.
so it's just
I can't sing, but
so it's like what will you do to get your inner child to have fun? Going down a roller coaster.
What about including the kids then, doing karaoke?
Yeah.
You can be stupid,
Yeah,
but to them you're not.
that's what I do a lot.
My kids won't do that. They like stuff this.
I get them, like my kids will sit there and say, Mum, you're just being an idiot again. And I'll just pick them up and just say, come on, let's dance. And I'll make them dance with me. And then I'll just say, and then they'll say, no, leave me alone. And then I'll chase around the other kids.
Listen to your feelings. Okay. One important way to get in touch with your inner child is to pay close attention to feelings that pop up in your daily life. These can be traced back to many of the wonderful and painful experiences of your childhood, where you were young and impressionable. The inner child's fears and insecurities, as well as their joys and feelings of wonder, often unfold into the emotional patterns of your adult life. Find the inner child. Go ride on your child's scooter, or do something fun. Go and do something fun. Maybe challenge yourself this week to do something fun. So you don't have much time, but you can do it up to Sunday, but go and do something fun. Be mindful of your inner critic. Alright, your inner child can also be very critical of yourself. So it's like, what on earth are you doing now? Come on, you're now an adult. Come on, adults don't do this. Adults don't climb trees. What are you doing? So it's like, sometimes it's just great to have fun. A while ago at gym, we planned to do Tough Mudder, and we are training Tuesdays and Thursdays, and every Tuesday and Thursday we had to dress up. So one week was superheroes, one week was this, one week was that. It was quite fun. So at church the other, or sometimes we have an adult. The other last year we had a a nerd night where everyone dressed up as nerds. That's fun. And it's only for 25-year-olds and up. So that was even more fun because we're all older people. So that's part of inner child. So maybe get a few fun friends. Get a few people who are actually fun and make friends with them instead of the droopy, sad ones. Take your inner child seriously. Okay, if your inner child wants to have fun, take it a bit seriously. And also if your client, and I'm not talking to you now just as like you, but I'm talking to you as if you also have a client that's got an issue with it, issues, and these things can help. Because it's challenges. It's a challenge which you can give to your client and say, I want you this week to go and do something fun, which you don't normally do. What did you do when you were a child and you really enjoyed? Why don't you do this? Play marbles.
Going down the river and skipping stones.
Reading.
What
That's what I didn't do. That's what I did. Hopscotch.
Hopscotch. Reading. We can we can draw a hopscotch field outside in the pathway.
Don't tolerate that, she will.
We can revive the inner child.
Try
Yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
can't. Not with me.
So there's lots of stuff you can do. Okay, reading. What about reading? What Nancy drew?
I used
Oh,
to read
yeah.
Nancy Drew.
I used to read.
She was my
classics.
favourite author, Nancy Drew.
Oh yeah.
Used to love that story.
Right. Accept your inner child's feelings. They have feelings too. You may experience frustration, feelings of anger, insecurity. It's important to let yourself feel this energy, however, because it is the inner child speaking to you. So this is stuff you can also take into consideration with your client. Like, what sort of feelings does little George have?
This is a very healing way.
Yeah.
Counselling even one.
Yeah.
It's a healing.
So how does little George? What feelings does he have? Frustration? Does he have anger? Why does he have anger? What's the anger? Okay, let's sit with, and this is what I did with Dylan, is we sit with it. So I say, before we move on, we sit with this anger for a moment and just think about the anger. And we sat there in silence. You can watch the video.
I'm going to tonight.
And then it's like, what does the anger tell you? Okay, so we acknowledge it. It's like, not, I feel anger, okay, we move on. But sometimes it's good to sit with it, to stop for a moment and say, okay, we're going to sit with this anger for a moment. And what does it tell you? Or what does the frustration tell you? And sometimes they tell you stuff which they didn't even expect. We use reparenting to embrace your inner childhood dreams. Reparenting is based on the idea that as an adult you now possess the knowledge and resources to give your inner child what she or he needs. So reparent. So you know your inner child needs healing. Your inner child needs nurturing because of what happened when they were young or whatever. You as a parent, what would you do to the inner child now? How would you address this? Okay. I tell you, this is quite deep. It's a bit different. It's totally a different sort of way of approaching a client. But this is obviously for clients that have issues from, or people that's. You can also do this with people that's very depressed. Get them to reconnect with their inner child. Okay, I'm not going to read everything because I've got the notes there, and you all can read. Yeah, you've proved that, okay? Protect your inner child, we protect our inner child. So you know what they go through, you know they've got insecurities, you protect your inner child too, you protect also your client. You need to learn your client or teach your client how to protect themselves, okay? The feelings, the insecurities, the pain, the hurt, the whatever. And as an adult they do certain stuff to protect themselves. But we have to address the child issues so that we can actually get those issues out, so that we can also, if the child gets healed, the adult can get healed, because they're connected. Organize your living area and make your home more open to playfulness and childhood. Some homes are houses and some homes are homes. Some
Mine's
people
a circus.
Some people just lives in a house. It's just a house. I had an aunt and she had a house. You go in there, it's like amazingly, you feel like you don't want to do anything. You sit there because it's so neat. And then you get people with their houses like actually a total mess, but you don't want to leave because that's a home. So change your living space, or is your living space actually in a child friendly?
My mother has a house like that over in that walks in my mum's house. So that's all.
Okay, develop a sense of fun. Play hide and seek. Okay, if you have children or nieces, nephews, get them to play with you. Getting your adult friends involved can also be fun. There's a whole psychology behind the hide and seek, and there's psychology behind playing and fun and stuff like that. There's also adult games you can play, which is amazing. A while ago I was invited to a murder mystery night.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I've had two of those.
It was amazing.
Awesome.
We had an awesome time.
You enjoyed it? They're great.
Yeah, you go into character. It was just amazing. So there's also adult games, but there's also children games. There's also game nights, Monopoly, whatever. Although Monopoly is really sometimes very boring because it just keeps on.
Pictionary.
It depends
Oh,
on who you're playing it with.
But sometimes it just goes on forever and
Pictionary.
ever and ever. My kids
There's all
love.
sorts of Monopoly.
Yeah. My kids love Uno. Like we sometimes we
Oh,
just
so
play
you're a
Uno.
7-year-old.
So sometimes we play those games. Or there's lots of games. The other day I got a silly game. Actually, I bought it. It's coffee beans. It's like dice. You throw the dice, and if you get that, you get 2 coffee beans. You get 4 coffee beans, and in the end, when all the coffee beans are done, it's a game you play within 6 or 7 minutes, and the game is over, which is fun. Short games, quick
But it
games.
still gets you out of wherever you are for that moment.
Yeah. So it's like fun. So sometimes we have to do a bit of fun. Sometimes it's good to go somewhere where there's, especially if let's say the church you go to and they have a jumping castle, to take off your shoes and go in the jumping castle. A while ago we had like a gladiator thing at church where it's like this blow up thing and you stand and stuff and you hit each other. So I got my kid on the other one and I hit him off the thing. It's like yeah. Or another time we got there, and the other day we had it's like a surfboard thing. You stand on the surfboard and it's like all sorts of fun stuff. And just sometimes we just need to not be adult. Sometimes we just need to get the fun side out of us. Okay. Buy a trampoline or use someone else's. You could even rent a bouncy house for a day and invite all your friends.
My nephew did that for his house for me. Got a big blow-up jumping castle for adults.
Yeah.
And for kids, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. So just just become a bit more like a child. Finger paint, draw, buy a coloring book. Just draw stuff. Finger paint. That's not really me, but sometimes I feel like I want to draw. The other day I was watching a YouTube clip where the guy actually stick crayons on a board and he took a hairdryer and blew it.
That was cool. Yeah.
I thought that's cool. I might want to do that. I'm going to try that. So do some fun stuff. Throw a dance party. Dancing can help you burn off stress like other physical activity, and it's also a creative avenue of expressing what spans different age groups. So have a dance party. Yeah. Join a Zumba class. Okay. free writing, free drawing. There's so much you can do as okay, there are 7 things. This is quite an interesting part. Is 7 things you can say to heal and nurture your inner child. Okay, the first part we talked about sort of getting the inner child, but give it a bit of like mouth to mouth, get it alive again. So there are stuff you can say to your inner child to heal the inner child. We have, first of all, say I love you. How many people actually can say to themselves, I love you? Can you look in a mirror and look yourself in the eye and say, I love you? Okay.
Psychologists use that quite a bit.
Yeah. Say it whenever you see yourself in the mirror. Say it in any random moments. Love is the key to healing, so give it to yourself. So many people don't love themselves. I love you. Look in the mirror and say, damn, you're good looking. Normally we look in the mirror and say, oh, I would like to look different. The key is accepting who you are. Look in the mirror and say, I love you. Take that on as a challenge.
Okay, that is a challenge.
Number 2 is for your inner child, I hear you. Instead of suppressing the voice of your inner child, say, I hear you. We'll work through it. It's going to be okay. The anxiety, the stress, something from the past, I hear you. It's going to be okay. I'm not suppressing you anymore. You didn't deserve this. A child is innocent and pure. A child does not deserve to be abused, shamed, and abandoned. It is not the child's fault, and through we may not have had the capacity to understand this then. Now as adults we do. As an adult you can say, I didn't deserve this. It's not my fault. There are so many children or so many adults walking around with guilt from stuff that happened when they were children. Guilt like, my parents divorced, it's my fault. It's not your fault.
Even with sexual assault as well.
It's not your fault. Sexual assaults, it's not your fault.
Post-traumatic.
All those things, it's not your fault. Someone dying, it's not your fault. Okay, so there's so many adults that are walking around and the inner child believes that it's their fault. So that's part of the thing, part of the stuff we say to the inner child to heal the inner child. And that's the stuff that you actually help your client in. It's not your fault.
Would that help with post-traumatic?
Huh? Yeah. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you went through this. I'm sorry, little George. Let big George say to little George, I'm sorry that you went through this.
And you can get them to say that within the counselling.
Yeah. You can say that in the counselling room.
That'd be a hard thing to do because basically you're still saying sorry to yourself but at a different age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'd be like saying I love you. That's still going to be just as hard to say I'm sorry to yourself.
Yeah.
But you could get a photo of your younger self.
You can do that. There's different ways. There's totally different ways, and you need to look into what will work the best for you, for your client, for you, for the person you are. How do you say sorry?
You can even get them to write a letter, sorry letter to them.
A letter. That's why a letter of healing can work. Okay. Saying sorry can work. How do you do that? So I've since allowed myself more downtime and my relationships with my loved ones have improved as a result. This is what this person said after she actually said sorry to herself. Okay. So it's not your fault. Sometimes as a counselor, it's sometimes saying sorry on behalf of an adult. You can sit there and say, I'm not your mother, but I just feel like I want to say on behalf of your mother, I want to say sorry to you.
That's when I might get the no answer.
That's why you need a stable client. But yeah. Yeah, so I forgive you. There's lots of clients that walk around with unforgiveness. I forgive you. I forgive you. Okay, we had 5, we've got 2 more to go, then we're done. Okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank your inner child for never giving up, for getting through the tough moments in life. Thank you, inner child, for trying to protect you. Inner child does not deserve your judgment. She deserves your gratitude and your respect.
You look at it, well, I'm here today because of that child.
I'm here today because you never gave up. You never gave up. You stayed strong. You were strong. You were like, because...
Yeah, you got to remember the inner child is still you. Yeah.
It's the inner child for you. And you did your best. I was always demanding and cruel to myself, and no matter how well I did, I never felt I was good enough. Sometimes we, as children, especially kids, don't feel we're good enough. Like one of the siblings, you always compete with a sibling. You have a parent that always like pushing you. You never feel like you did enough. You can actually get to the point where you say to your inner child, hey, you know what? You did your best.
Yeah.
You did your best. I love this picture.
Oh, that's cool.
Welcome your inner child.
Doing something crazy, but
Do something
doing
crazy.
every minute.
Yeah. Just welcome your inner child. Go to walk past the park and actually jump on a swing,
I
or
have actually done that.
just do that. Just be creative. Just love life. There's an awesome song that Robbie Williams actually sing. I think he actually wrote it for his daughter. He's like, I love my life.
Yes.
I am powerful. I am wonderful.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah,
That was one of his later ones, yeah.
it's like I love that song because that song says I love my life, I'm powerful, I'm wonderful. I would like to put that on every single disc I have and give it to each of my clients to say, listen to this. Okay, so that's the inner child. That's just, and you can read a bit more on the topic of the inner child. There's a lot more to discuss on this, but it's a good way of actually starting an inner healing and healing yourself.
Saying that I can give you one example. My grandmother was on a farm for many, many years in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
She got out when she moved to another little country town.
Yeah.
Sorry. That day that we arrived up there after she was able to get out, she went down to the cricket at the age of 80.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And played on the Sphinx.
Oh,
She
yeah.
ended up bruising her tailbone and couldn't walk today.
Yes.
But that was her way of releasing herself. I'm back.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's it. And that's the end of the inner child. You can really read a bit more on the last page. There's two references to inner child. So I challenge you, go and do something fun this week. Do something that you haven't done in a while, and just dance as if no one is watching.
Yeah. Oh, kick a
Okay.
football.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a
Not
good
that it'll
weekend,
go very far.
everyone.
See you soon.